Chris Stanwell, graduate student in the Department of Computing Science, will lead us in the singing of the Vote Canada. Please be seated. I declare the fall 2006 Convocation assembled to the granting of degrees. Mr. President, members of the Board of Governors and Senate, faculty, honored guests, graduates, and friends. My name is Arthur, and I am the Chancellor of this university. This is our 41st annual Convocation, and we are delighted and honored to have in attendance today a number of distinguished guests on the platform and in the audience, including friends and colleagues of the university, representatives of our fellow educational institutions, the federal and provincial government, and the council officials. A special welcome is given to Dr. Fraser, Chair of the Board of Governors. I am pleased also to welcome our audience from around the world joining us via the internet. Welcome all. This afternoon, an honorary Doctor of Science degree will be conferred on Al Asbury. Honored guests, graduates, families, friends, faculty, and staff. It is my great honor and privilege to welcome you to Simon Fraser University's 2006 Fall Convocation Ceremony. Today is a significant milestone for you. It marks a transition, a conclusion of one chapter in your life's journey, and the beginning of another. And it is a transition that many of you have chosen to share with families, special friends, teachers, and mentors. As part of today's ceremony, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on your past achievements and on your future goals, so that when you remember this day, you will also remember how you felt about the infinite possibilities and options facing you. You are graduates of Simon Fraser University, and as such, you are part of a unique and distinctive alumni community. You have benefited from our uncompromising commitment to excellence in interdisciplinary studies. And just as you are proud of the university you chose, this university is proud of you. Each of you is part of our ongoing reputation for excellence and achievement, and I am confident that as alumni you will continue to strengthen our well-deserved ranking as a world-class academic institution. Simon Fraser University is proudly different. It set out to be different from the very beginning. It was born to be different. I've always believed that the willingness to be different is the true mark of mavericks and innovators. The vision for this university has always been to be different in ways different in ways that will benefit its students, its faculty, and the community it touches. In fact, innovation and distinction have become part of the SFU brand. If you log on to our website, you will note that it says we are different by degrees. And it is so true, we are different by degrees. The reputation that SFU has cultivated as an outstanding center of excellence in academia is supported by the extraordinary achievements of both its alumni and faculty in research, advocacy, and innovation. I encourage you to continue valuing differences and distinction as you move forward to take up the challenges of your future. Aim to be a degree more celebrated. Distinguish yourself through your achievements. Strive to be a degree more influential. Make sure you both listen and you are heard, because both are essential to shape opinion. Ensure you remain a degree more innovative. Continue to push the envelope, leveraging the new methods, programs, and ways of thinking you encountered while at university. Continue to be a degree more flexible. Adapt and evolve, because in doing so, you will always accommodate the diverse requirements of an unpredictable future. Always aim to be a degree more engaged. Connect with each other and your communities. It was Arthur Erickson who said, an education isn't how much you've committed to memory, or even how much you know. It's being able to differentiate between what you know and what you don't. As you look forward toward your future, you get to choose your own area of contribution. You are pioneers and explorers, and you are in good company. In spite of our status as one of Canada's youngest universities, Simon Fraser has proved itself to be a pioneer. We were the first Canadian university to seat students in our Senate, the first to offer an executive MBA program, the first to offer a postgraduate liberal studies master's program. Stephen Jobs said, innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. You have embraced innovation and risen to its challenge. We thank you all for having left us better and stronger. Keep thinking big. Do not place limits on your dreams. In fact, I challenge you all to review your goals and ask yourself, would they be different if you were not absolutely certain that you would not fail? Fear of failure can keep us from achieving our true potential. It was William Shakespeare who said, our doubts are traitors and makes us lose the food that oft we may win by fearing to attempt. We are proud of the members of our student body and faculty who have dared to move past doubt, and in so doing have achieved great things. Within our short history, we've been privileged to have been part of some great achievements. I have always been personally inspired by the courage and optimism of Terry Fox, now a national icon, who united our country in pride and support for his cause, and he was a student here at Simon Fraser. Olympians, artists, scientists, and politicians all have graduated from this university, and now it is up to you to continue this great legacy. Convocation is about transition. It is about recognizing the efforts and the success of the past, and it is about looking forward to the future. It is about leveraging what you have learned and finding a way to differentiate yourself in today's competitive marketplace. Be confident that your individuality and unique gifts that have been nurtured by this great university will serve you well. I want to leave you with the words of William Jennings Bryan, who said, destiny is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. It is not a thing to be waited for. It is a thing to be achieved. I urge you all to choose well. Congratulations and thank you. And I call upon the President of Simon Fraser University, Dr. Michael Stevenson.
Mr. Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to add my warm welcome to this convocation and to join in congratulating those who graduate today. This is, of course, their day, and I know we all take great pride in their achievements. 4 or 5 years ago, they came to Simon Fraser University as some of the brightest students in the land, gaining admission to programs with entrance standards that are amongst the highest in North America. And today they move on after successfully achieving the very high standards set by this university for graduation. Ladies and gentlemen of the graduating class, as you look back on your time at SFU, I hope that you will find these years were years of the greatest personal satisfaction and development. Years in which you experienced a profound personal transformation by learning to think more deeply, to understand the world more clearly, and to engage in your society more critically. Years in which you made lasting friendships, and years in which you worked harder than ever before, but for the best return on investment in your life. Beyond the personal achievements that we celebrate with you, I hope you will also remember your time at SFU as a time of extraordinary institutional change and momentum. That you will remember with pride that while you were here, SFU began to build the most exciting residential community in Canada on Burnaby Mountain. That in your time here, SFU doubled the population of students living on campus. That we expanded and improved athletic and recreation facilities, including a magnificent addition to the gymnasium. That we opened a new applied science building and began construction of 3 other major academic buildings for programs in the natural sciences, social sciences, and health science. That we opened the new Siegel Graduate School of Business in a magnificently restored building in downtown Vancouver, and that we established our new campus in the magnificent Surrey Centre complex. I hope you will often remember that while you were here, SFU continued its great tradition of innovation in higher education, revolutionizing research and teaching in new fields that will shape our future. Fields like interactive arts and technology, public and population health, international studies, cognitive science, forensic science, global asset and wealth management, medicinal chemistry, mechatronics, and nanotechnology. And finally, I hope that when you look back over your time here, you will think deeply about the global transformation to which you have been witness during these few years. After an abbreviated decade celebrating the end of the Cold War, you witnessed the return to warfare launched by Western powers and an era of heightened international insecurity. After a falsely optimistic celebration of the end of history and the triumph of liberal capitalism, you have witnessed the resuscitation of attacks on science, liberalism, and secular humanism. And after a centuries-long conviction of the ethical right and the technical capacity to master nature, you have witnessed the spreading realization that we now threaten the sustainability of our ecosphere and the capacity for continued growth on established economic models. These massive changes in the world and our understanding of it have made your time at SFU challenging and demanding. Global transformation on this scale has put a high premium on the education you have received here. Not so much on the information you have absorbed in your studies, which for all its sophistication and depth is still far from adequate to address the challenges we face. What we rely on rather is that at SFU you have learned to identify rather than deny real problems. That you have learned to critically examine rather than passively accept assertions about the way things are or should be. That you have learned to be open rather than closed to the riches of other cultures. And that you have learned that skepticism, imagination, and empathy are more reliable guides to action than fundamentalist certainty, tradition, and prejudice. So, to all of you graduating today, congratulations on your personal achievements as students at SFU. Thank you for being part of a great era of innovation and change at this university, and best wishes as you set out to confront a world more challenging than at any previous time in history. We wish you success and happiness in all your endeavors. Congratulations to you all.
The honorary degree will now be conferred. Mr. President, will you present the honorary degree candidate, Alan Asbury?
Mr. Chancellor, today we honor a man who is recognized as one of his generation's most productive and influential scientists in the field of particle physics. As a researcher and administrator, Dr. Alan Asbury has not only contributed to our basic scientific knowledge of the universe, but also championed the advancement of science in society. Alan Asbury completed his undergraduate and graduate degrees at the University of Liverpool. An exceptionally brilliant young scientist, he eventually joined Rutherford Laboratories at Oxford as a research physicist. And soon after, he became a co-spokesman for a group of physicists whose experiments in Geneva, Switzerland, resulted in the discovery of new subatomic particles and the confirmation that two of nature's four basic forces, electromagnetism and the weak nuclear force, are actually manifestations of a single force. For his part in this Nobel Prize-winning work, Dr. Asbury received the prestigious Rutherford Medal and was later made a Fellow of the British Royal Society and of the Royal Society of Canada. In 1983, this country was fortunate enough to attract Dr. Asbury to its shores. He joined the University of Victoria as R.M. Pearce Professor of Physics, and there his unique gifts for research combined with his present leadership served to attract many outstanding particle physicists. Under his guidance, his department was transformed into a world-class research center. When later he became director of Triumph in 1994, that laboratory was facing a challenging future. Undaunted, Dr. Asbury set out a bold and vigorous program, one that redefined research initiatives and restructured Triumph to serve as the Canadian platform for participation in the network of international facilities conducting the world's groundbreaking experiments in particle and nuclear physics. Triumph soon began to receive significant increases in funding, and its outstanding record of achievement raised the profile of science in this country. Today, Triumph remains one of the world's leading institutions for subatomic research and ensures that Canada participates on the world stage. Alan Asbury's peers credit him for much of that success. Dr. Asbury's career in science is a continuous record of superlative achievement. For his exemplary contributions, the University of Victoria honoured him with the Craig Darragh Gold Medal for Career Achievement in Research. In 2002, the Canadian Association of Physics awarded him their Medal for Lifetime Achievement in Physics. And it is now our privilege to pay tribute to this extraordinary individual. Mr. Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of this university, I ask that you now confer upon Dr. Alan Asbury the degree Doctor of Science honoris causa.
Alan Asbury, by the virtue of the authority vested in me in the Senate of this university, I hereby admit you to the degree of Doctor of Science honoris causa. Alan Asbury will be hooded by Dr. John Waterhouse, Vice President, Academic.
It is with pleasure that I now call on Dr. Alan Asbury for his convocation address. Dr. Asbury?
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, members of the graduating class, ladies and gentlemen, first I would like to thank deeply Simon Fraser University for the honour which you give me today. If I look at the names of the people that you're recognising this year, then it's a very impressive list of people, household names, one might say. So it's with a little trepidation, a lot of feeling flattered that I appear in the same list, but I'm very pleased that you chose to honour and respect basic science as part of your convocations. And I am a basic scientist, I'm a basic experimentalist, and that will show. I had a bout of scientific administration, but I got over it, really. I'm now back doing research. And I would like to say a few words. My brief, I gather, is to say something which will interest the graduating class. I find that not an easy thing to do. The young people of these days, if I compare them with myself of 50 years ago, you all seem much brighter than I was. You have a much wider range of tools than I ever had. I picked them up to the best of my ability. You seem much more confident. So it's not easy for me to try and understand what I can tell you, but let me try. And since this is a science convocation, let me say a few words about science. If I ask the people in this audience individually, what is science? I'm sure I would get a very broad range of answers. I mean, we could start by telling you what science isn't, and it's been alluded to in the last two speeches. Science isn't acquiring a range of facts, rather like training for Trivial Pursuit Olympics. That it is not, and as years pass, it gets less and less important, because you all know that knowledge these days is at your fingertips, it's even on your cell phone. Knowledge is, science is part of culture. And most countries have their science culture. They have their great scientists. But in a way, unlike some of the other parts of culture, our greats are really produced in a certain sense on demand. Let me explain. If you take literature and you take Shakespeare, if he never existed, you wouldn't have Shakespeare's plays. There'd be other plays, but there wouldn't be Shakespeare's plays, not that unique set. The bard on the beach would have to be another bard altogether. If you hadn't have had Beethoven, you wouldn't have his symphonies. You'd have others, but you wouldn't have his. Now, this situation doesn't exist in science, certainly not in modern science. For example, there was a point in time where a physics experiment needed an explanation, couldn't be understood sensibly. Einstein stepped forward with his special theory of relativity and explained the situation. Now, if he hadn't have done it, and he's very famous for having done it, someone else would have done it. They would have had to have done it. That theory to progress. In 1953, for example, Crick and Watson unraveled the structure of DNA, the double helix. Had they not have done it, it would have been done by someone else quite quickly in that instance, and they would have got exactly the same answer, because it's right. And this is how we progress in science, and this is how we produce our grades. It may surprise you to know that science basic science, spends a lot of its time shrouded in uncertainty. We really don't know the answers. If you pick any subject, any topic in the subject, you will find that there's a core of knowledge with theory that predicts the answers, You can get those answers, you can do the experiments, but you won't make very much progress. But as you go out, away from that core, you get to the frontiers where you don't know what the answers will be. You have no idea what the answers will be. The theories get more and more exotic, they get more and more beautiful. Theorists, in a way, are quite good at dreaming in technicolor, but it takes just a simple, reproducible, experimental measurement that can trump the most beautiful theory that you have. And this is really how science progresses. Now, it wasn't always like this. I mean, for 2,000 years, it wasn't like this. Aristotle walked the planet something like 300 BC, and he and his followers believed that you could solve and understand the natural world simply by thinking about it. Pure thought would get you where you wanted to go. Now, if you look at Aristotle, he had thoughts on science. He believed that if you took a body and you let it would fall with a velocity that was proportional to its mass. Now, that's a very interesting, sounds fairly plausible. So that means if I take 1 kilogram and I let it fall through 1 meter, that will take the same time maybe as 10 kilograms through 10 meters. Sounds like, well, it would be interesting to turn this into a multiple choice with a show of hands from the platform party, actually, really, to see where we get. But what was so blindingly obvious was that no one did this simple experiment. Simply no one had the nous to make the measurement. And this was the case until around the 1600s, when Galileo appeared, a genius. He made measurements, built equipment, did experiments, and of course he found that all bodies, irrespective of the mass, pick up their velocity in exactly the same way. Now, Galileo was not the only person, but there were only a handful of people, and it's from those 1600s that we have made the progress in science. It's not an accident that the Royal Society, and they claim to be the oldest society, scientific society, came into existence at that time. I mean, I can remember the date clearly. It's the 28th of November, 1660. It's within 1 day of my birthday. The November part is within 1 day of my birthday. I don't claim the 1660 bit, actually. And they had a motto, Nullus in verba. Now, many of you Latin scholars will know that means on the words of no man. Now, you need help to understand that. It's always the same in Latin, actually. I mean, I'm an emeritus professor. I've been working at the University of Victoria for a number of years. It took me 1 month exactly to understand that emeritus loosely translates into unpaid, actually. So what does this Royal Society motto translate into? It really means you shouldn't take anyone's word for anything in science. It must be based on observation, on measurement, and on experiment. And that is how we make progress. The facts are placed in theory, but those two beaten together, mostly led by experiment, is how you make progress. Now, today we have graduates in applied science. Applied science is a great challenge. I'm not an applied scientist, but it's the applied scientists who take the facts from basic science and transform them into products, into technologies, into things that make our lives longer, healthier, more efficient, richer in the broadest sense of the word. So there's a very close interplay between basic and applied science. The applied scientist takes the basic knowledge and innovates. The basic scientist takes the best of technology and gets on with experiments. Now you may think, and there are people in Ottawa who feel this, you don't need to do the basic science. All you need to do is have someone who understands it, and then if you can read it in the publications, the applied scientists will keep you abreast of the rest of the world. Well, that's not so, really. I mean, if you're a country and you don't have at the table rubbing shoulders with people and scientists from other countries, you don't have your brightest and the best working on what are generally regarded as the most fundamental and interesting problems in the world, then you'll be forgotten if you're not at the table. And eventually you'll be ignored. Now you may say, well, that's not so bad really. We save a lot of money that way. Well, indeed you do, but if you can live in a country like that, but I wouldn't like to live in a country like that. And another thing you lose, if you lose the basic science really trains all of science. Now there are people here who I'm sure you will go on in the graduating class and you will do your research, and there'll be a very broad range of abilities, the way you do things. I hope that you will all pass through this particular moment when you know that you know. It's a very, very nice feeling. It's a very good moment. There may even be amongst you a Nobel laureate in the future. I'm sure your university hopes there's a Nobel laureate in the future amongst you. You will have an added pleasure that there will be a brief time when you and maybe a few colleagues know something that no one else knows on the planet. And that's a very precious feeling. And I hope that our Nobel laureate is a young lady, because we badly need young ladies in science. But we all bring to the science table one thing that is basically the same, and that is our scientific integrity. There's fraud in science, there's fraud in the life sciences, there's even fraud in physics. But those of you who will work where your results have an impact on the decisions that people make and the way that they arrange their lives, it's very important indeed that you say what your research really covers, how confident you are in it, how widely you've looked, and how important it is, and whether it's right. And you must be transparent. I speak as if you're all going to be research scientists, but of course you're not. There are many of you in the audience who will use your degrees to do all kinds of things. You're a privileged bunch in society. You will shape the future of society. But as you pass through your careers, you will face decisions. You will face choices. You don't need me to tell you that your life is going to run forward on parallel lines from here until the grave. It won't. You will have to make choices. There are choices that when you make them, they can lead to great things. You can make mistakes, and you will make mistakes. Now, how best do you make those choices? Well, I can't really tell you. I've made my share of mistakes. The only thing I can tell you is that you will recover from them, because we all do. Now, I actually think that you take away from Simon Fraser University something which, in the long run, will be far more valuable to you than the qualifications that you get and take away this afternoon. And these are the friendships that you have forged while you were at university. There are many people who you have seen every day for the last 3 or 4 years. From today or around this time, you may never see them again in your lives. It's sad, but it's true. There's a handful of people with whom you forged close friendships. If you concentrate on these friendships, cultivate these friendships, they can be with you for a lifetime. And the strength that you take from these friendships is an enormous support for you and your families. I'm of an age now where I've lost friends, and it hurts when you lose friends. I will probably have gone on too long. I will finish with 3 rather brief things. First of all, thank you again to the university. I feel very honoured that you have recognised me in this way. I would like to feel that in basic science I'm not done. I have a little bit more mileage on my clock, and the difference now is that I feel linked with Simon Fraser. And I'm very grateful for that. It's a good feeling. I'd like to say a word to parents. You've been neglected so far, certainly by me. No doubt when you see your sons and daughters receive their degrees, you'll have a feeling of pride. Well, you should have. You've earned it. Because I'm sure you've had a major role in bringing these young people to this point in their career. Maybe for some of you, it's the first time that your children have been away from home. You've seen them grow independent. You may have seen things that you didn't entirely approve of. You may even feel maybe you've lost them. You may even feel, thank God they've gone. I don't know. But also, I would guarantee that there are mothers in the audience who've missed daughters more than they've admitted to. Anyway, I have 2 daughters, and I know I'm no substitute, and I'm an experimental scientist, and all I have to do is observe the size of my phone bill, actually, really. But you haven't lost your children. This independence has taught them one thing that they knew all along, and put crudely, that is, you are the best deal that they will ever have. And finally, to the graduating class, congratulations on your degrees. All the best with your choices. Cultivate those friendships. Believe me, they will be worth it off into the future. And off into the future, there will be occasions where people will say to you, where did you get your degree? And that question will sometimes be loaded. Now, you will of course say, Simon Fraser University, but I would urge you, when you say it with pride. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asbury. Mr. Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, the members of the graduating class will now be presented to the Chancellor. And as part of the ceremony, the Alumni Association will present a Simon Fraser University alumni pin to each of the graduates. I invite SFU alumnus Dr. Christopher Hardy to the podium to bring greetings to the graduates. Dr. Hardy received his bachelor's degree in mathematics and physics from SFU in 1982 and his PhD at the University of Washington in 1987. He is currently an associate professor in the physics department at UBC, where he conducts research in the field of subatomic physics. Dr. Hardy?
My name is Christopher Hardy, and I'm a proud graduate of Simon Fraser University. On behalf of the Alumni Association, it is my privilege and pleasure to congratulate you all on your graduation. Today, as you begin your lives as members of the alumni community, you join over 91,000 SFU graduates worldwide. As you cross the stage, I will be presenting you with an alumni pin. I encourage you to wear it proudly as a symbol of your achievement and your alumni status. Wherever life takes you in the future, we hope you'll keep the SFU spirit alive and well, and that you'll stay connected to your alma mater and your fellow alumni. Welcome to the Alumni Association.
Thank you, Dr. Hardy. Just a few requests before we get underway. Would you please refrain from applauding the individual members of the graduating class until each group of degrees has been conferred? This does not forbid spontaneous expressions of enthusiasm. As a courtesy to others, please remain seated until the conclusion of the ceremony, and would the graduates please return to their seats following receipt of their degrees. The degrees in the Faculty of Applied Sciences and the Faculty of Science will now be conferred. Will the graduates please rise for presentation to the Chancellor? Mr. Chancellor, I present to you these scholars who have fulfilled the statutory requirements laid down by the Senate of the University, and I request that you confer upon each one the degree for which he or she is now recommended.
By virtue of the authority vested in me and in the Senate of this university, I hereby admit you to your various and several designations. Will the graduates please be seated?
Before the graduates are presented individually to the Chancellor, I'm pleased to call upon John Grant, a member of this afternoon's graduating class, to address Convocation. Mr. Grant?
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, university leaders, faculty, staff, family and friends, those who are with us in spirit today, and most importantly, fellow graduates. Congratulations, we made it! It's probably one of the greatest feelings we will ever feel, for at least a long time to come. I do have a question though before I get started, and I would like a show of hands from our graduates. How many of you actually took longer to complete your degrees than you originally anticipated? And now, how many of us actually have different career goals than we did when we first came to SFU? Less, okay. And now I have a question for the entire group today. How many of you still don't know what you want to do when you grow up? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Grant. And like most of you here today, I had somewhat of a concrete plan when I first came to SFU. I knew that I was going to finish my degree in 4 years, and that I was going to finish and enter the field of journalism. So after I completed my communication major and my minor in psychology, which I struggled through, I find myself before you 6 years later, and with absolutely no desire whatsoever to be a journalist. It's kind of troubling in a sense. I was also that naive student who first came to campus and said that he would never spend an extra moment up here that he absolutely had to. It could have had something to do with the 2.5-hour commute that I had to make to White Rock and back before the Millennium Line came into existence. But now, ironically, I find myself here 5 days a week, from at least 9 to 5, because I'm a staff member here with SFU's Co-op Education Department. As you can tell, unfortunately, none of my colleagues were able to join us today. I love you guys. I do have to admit as well, it is a lot different to be up here when the university is actually paying you. It is a lot different, and now I know what scholarship winners feel like, so congratulations to all of them, because it was definitely a hard-earned achievement for all of you. Many of us have been waiting a very long time for this day, some of us longer than others. And I remember feeling initial exhilaration when I went on to go SFU and found out that I actually did pass my final course of my degree. It was probably the greatest feeling ever. But then I found myself asking, okay, that's great, but now what? No longer can I actually schedule my life in 4-month segments by semesters. I now have to plan for the rest of my life. Or do I? And a lot of us are probably feeling a sense of uncertainty right now. I spoke to a lot of my fellow graduates today who really are a little scared because they don't really know what they want to do. But the fact of the matter is we all face this same uncertainty when we first came to this university, whether it be from high school, college, whatever it might be, across the world for that matter, because we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. So I want to remind us a few of the steps that we actually went through, and to show us that we actually wound up here today relatively unscathed. For instance, initially, we all had to register via the old archaic telephone registration system. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I know the redial button was very handy because we all came to learn that it could take at least an hour or an hour and a half to get through the system. And then once we actually got in, it was like a celebration until we found out that we were really only given 15 minutes to plan out our semesters. God forbid you could not get the courses you wanted. And then at the end of your 15 minutes, the lady would come on and say, "Your time has expired. Goodbye. Thanks for the warning." We also quickly came to learn that we cannot choose courses based on the course number. I remember my first semester here at SFU, I enrolled in Philosophy 001. Not even a 100 level course. I figured it would be the easiest thing up here, and probably some sort of a joke. Well, the joke was on me because I nearly failed in the end. I also learned very quickly that there was a lot to do at university, especially if you combine that with other experiences, volunteer work, family life, all of that. So I actually found myself at times learning against what some professors would sort of urge us to do. Rather than sit at the front of the classroom, I would go to the back, because that way I could scramble to get my presentation done for the tutorial that would come right after lecture. Or we might be able to cram in a few extra hours of sleep since we've been studying the night before or working on a project. And finally, we do have to pay tribute to Mr. Arthur Erickson, the relatively ingenious architect of this university. I do have to admit that I'm not really too sure about all the concrete. However, we have to give him a lot of credit because we quickly learned that we can walk from one end of campus to the other without actually getting wet when it's raining up here. That in itself is pretty remarkable, I thought. But now, all joking aside, I want to share with you the fact that some of the greatest experiences that I had through my university career were the opportunities that I had to actually travel around the world to so many interesting places where I met so many interesting people, whether it be via a co-op work term or an international exchange experience. And whether we all realize it or not today, we've actually all been working towards the largest trip of our lifetimes, life after graduation. SFU, in a sense, can be seen as somewhat of a travel agent, and I want you to bear with me for this. A travel agent in the sense that SFU has helped guide us in the direction that we want to go to get to our final destination. And that comes in terms of assistance, in terms of determining our major or minor, what types of programming we wanted to take, if we wanted to do co-op, if we wanted to enroll in anything else. In addition, we all had to pack our bags. And like any trip or journey that you're going on, you want to take as many possible things as you can that are going to be useful for you, that you're going to need. So we all did that in the form of our courses, or like I said, any extracurricular activities or programming that we took part in. But much like any trip in which we always find that we're taking something that we're not going to use, even as communication students had to take those dreaded stats courses. I'm not going to use it. That's my argument, at least. And then we also had to endure, I think, the world's most rigorous security check, which would put all airport security checks around the world to shame, in that we had to consistently prove our knowledge and our learning via papers, projects, assignments, exams. My security check took 6 years. I've never had that in an airport personally. And finally, today, we've actually arrived at the airport. And in a few moments, we're going to be given our boarding passes in the form of our degrees when we all walk across this stage. But much like any trip or journey, we all probably have a starting point because that's where we are today. But depending on what happens between now and, let's say, the end, there's no real telling what's going to happen or where we're going to wind up. So now that we're entering what my dad likes to refer to as the real world, what are we supposed to do? Well, it's time to challenge ourselves once again and go through some of those new experiences. Perhaps some of us are going to become the world's greatest marketing and communication professionals, or the first to invent a new tool or program that's going to take the world in a brand new direction. Or, better yet, an integral member of a research team that is working towards the cure of some of the world's most debilitating diseases. And I truly hope that is the case. The fact that we're all here today shows that we have managed to accomplish our goals and our dreams. but more importantly, to actually conquer our minds when they've told us that we simply cannot go on any further. Whether that be from exhaustion, frustration, there are a number of different possibilities, but we're all here and we all made it. So whether you have a plan or not, one of the keys is to always remember that you need to explore all of the possibilities that are out there. Even if that means delaying your overall plan in life or your timeline, or going down uncharted territory in which you're a little uncertain about, take that risk. Had I stuck to my initial plan, I never would have wound up going to Greece to work on the Olympic Games in Athens on a co-op work term. Nor would I have gone to Ottawa to work for the Canada Research Chairs program and freeze my eyelashes together in the coldest winter I've ever experienced in my lifetime. But also, I met my best friends in Ottawa, and one of them is crossing this stage today. In addition, we all need to experience new and challenging situations. Through my co-op experience, I learned that I do not want to be a journalist, but rather a marketing and communications specialist. The key here is to stay open to all of the possibilities. And finally, yet what I consider the most important element, is that we need to engage ourselves in careers and opportunities that put the best possible, or rather I should say, make the best possible use of our university degrees. This is one of the elements of our lives that we've probably invested the most in terms of both time and energy. So put it to use. Don't let it go to waste. We're very fortunate to be entering a marketplace in which there are plenty of job opportunities out there for us, and to be living in a society in which our dreams can become reality if we truly want them to be. I'm sorry, Starbucks, but we're more than just baristas now. We're overqualified. We, fellow graduates, are the future of our country, even of the world, or as Marshall McLuhan would say, the global village. Yes, that's a lot of responsibility. However, as my parents and my mentor have taught me, we strive to achieve our goals, we will be that much closer to actually accomplishing them. And now I want to end with a quote from Denis Gabor, who's a Hungarian physicist, who said, "The future cannot be predicted, but futures can be invented." It is our ability to invent the future that gives us hope and makes us who we are today. Thank you and good luck with your journeys.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Mr. Chancellor, the Dean of Graduate Studies, Dr. John Driver, will announce the names of the candidates for graduate degrees in the Faculty of Applied Sciences and the Faculty of Science.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Dr. Brian Lewis, Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences, will put the candidates. Hao Jiang, Senior Supervisors Zhenyan Li and Dr. Mark Drew. Dr. Cheng Mu, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Mark Drew. Dr. Michael Riediger, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Paul Hogue. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the Faculty of Science. Dr. Michael Plischke, Dean of the Faculty of Science, will put the candidates. Dr. Ji Liang Bao, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Karen Kavanaugh. Dr. Hugh Dalgleish, Senior Supervisor, Dr. George Kirchnow. Dr. Nicolette Hunson, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Erica Plattner. Dr. Kimberly Yantunen, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Danny Lesnoff. Dr. Marijuana Paduraru, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Peter Wilson. Dr. Jeremy Pettigrew, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Peter Wilson. Dr. Mohammed Rahman, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Zamir Punjab. Dr. Taramati Ramyal, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Jason Clyburn. Dr. Rutger Voss, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Arne Moers. Dr. Sandra Webster, Senior Supervisor, Dr. Larry Dill. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Master of Applied Science in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Eddie Chu. Hanjin Cho. Guan King Jie. Yildiz Takashi.
Sorry.
Sihon Sang. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Master of Arts in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Rod Bendor. Bob Mackay. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Master of Engineering in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Roland Chang. Hit 10 Mystery. Wei Peng. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Master of Resource Management in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Lydia Harold. Aaron Height. Gordon McGee. Kate Shapiro. Darren Witt. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Master of Science in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Aslan Butt. Franco Wing Ping Chun. Cheryl Claudio. Andrew Clements. Baljit Daliwal. Tai Mei Ye. Anne Foran. Jonathan Hattal. Jonathan Kavanagh. Adele Knight. Jerry Lee. Yan Long. Wenting Ma. Mushal Anwar. Erica Paras. Murray Patterson. Sergei Razikov. Thomas Smythe. Haris Widyaya. Ian Williamson. Yinan Zhang. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidate for the degree of Master of Pest Management in the Faculty of Science. Shannon Dirksen. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Master of Science in the Faculty of Science. David Bridger. Aaron Chappell. Jason Hobson. Carl LaRoche. Desmond Young. Sarah MacArthur. Nadia Canary. Michael Preston. Gurbakesh Singh.
No, man, I can go tighter. What do you want?
Joanna Wallace. Jin Wang.
Yeah, I'm not even seeing that on my monitor, but I'll move in.
Shiwa Ying. David Zemmer.
Yeah, gotcha.
Chancellor, the Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences, Dr. Brian Lewis, will announce the names of the candidates for undergraduate degrees in his faculty.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Applied Science in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Slavyenko, Yindar Cho, Ely Gibson, Cedric Newton, Albert King, Sean Pallister, Ali Roshanami, Albert Wang, Bill Yang, Mahmoud Sam Zahed, Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Sarah Ali, Chandra Beaton, Natalie Bird, Ramanji Bangu, Laura Buchanan, Vijaya Kadi, Angel Chen, Kevin Chen, Kwok Cheng, Jasdeep Chokar, Rolly Chu, Alice Chu, Ho Yin Chow, Wei Chow, Anna Chu, Keiko Ku, Rochelle Khan, Jessica Danielchuk, Sean Gauthier, Andrew George, Garrett Gillespie, John Grant, Ariane Hadjo, Ross Hales, Ken Holt, Mensa Rojan, Melissa Cairn, Kisak Kim, Marina Crouchin, Mahakaban. Augustine Kwan. Kwak Sulam. Wusang Lee. Charlie Lee. Nina Man. Lindsay Merritt. Brittany Markle. Connor McKee. David Lisa. Luke Mochizuki. Sunny Orr. Say Pun. Cassidy Pepper. Michelle Peters. Shalina Punja. Mandy Sandhu. Natalie Shibu. Clifford Shin. David Shin. Kelly Shin. Sarah Sinclair. Melissa Stranovic. Kylie Stanton. Sammy Terablas. Calvin Teo. Andrew Tikach. Kristen Torno. Han Vo, Ellen Vo. Ka Hing Wong. Alice Wong. Carrie Wu. Jieping Zhang. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of General Studies in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Naomi Uguchi. Kevin Ramlu. Yin Tain Xia. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Michael Agan. Masahiro Akiyama. Preeti Bharajwaj. Douglas Bruval. Jacques Buchholz. Wei Chen. Wei Dong Chen. Yvonne Cheng. Vincent Cheng. Jessica Chung. Eugene Chin. Vincent Chu. Snezhna Filipovich. Darren Gatley. Ying Han. Troy Henke. Wing Chun Ho. Jian Wang. Liang Zhan. Shafiq Jumrati. Paul Lahoa, Gary Lee, Wei Ma, Miyu Nakagawa, Ran, Teresa Sanchez, Oliver Stroop, Kenny Teng, Warren Wang, Si Chen Chong, Jiar Zhang, Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science, Information Technology in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Gabriel Au, Stephen Chan, Marian Jordanov, Stephen Can, Luis Guerrero, Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science, Interactive Arts in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Amanda Hall, Travis Curtin, James Lalonde, Cale McComb, Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science, Kinesiology in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Kimberly Anderson, Kimberly Chan, Esther Chan, Arlan Christensen, Jennifer Marie Coe, Lauren DeMarchi, Navdeep Da, Rajan Jaswal, Grace Jun, Sandra Johnson, Sophia Kazan, Iris Lee, Yam Young, Monique Magushi, Jennifer Mulally, Kristen Pummel, Amanda Rivera, Megan Toms, Tracy Wong, Ching Yi Yip, Stephanie Yu,
Chancellor, the Dean of the Faculty of Science, Dr. Michael Plischke, will announce the names of the candidates for undergraduate degrees in his faculty.
Chancellor, I have the honour of presenting the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science in the Faculty of Science. Tanas Afghani, Waikong Au, Raini Aulak, Paul Chan, Jinghan Chen, Lulu Chen, Alan Cheng, Leslie Cheng, Winky Cheng, Alex Chow, Voiman Chu, Zoran Sikovic, Corwin Cole, Liao Dai, Michael Damiani, Leila Fazal, Leslie Fu, Amanda Gronat, Sarah Granby, Christian Halim, Lindis Hill, Richie Hui, Poonam Jassi, Eileen Jones, Paul Jukpal, Lansana Kaba, Samyun Kang, Chinghan Kao, Maninder Kaur, Austin Knight, Jenny Kwan, Nadia Kucherak, Nelson Kwan, Kevin Kwong, Alan Labram, Evgeny Lebed, Andrea Lee, Janice Lee, Genevieve Lennox, Krista Lepic, Amy Leung, Carolina Leung, Joshua Lionhurst, Mindy Lim, Ivy Ling, Wenhao Liu, Mylin Mach, Stephanie Mann, Parminder Mangat, Alison Marcel, Nigel May, Karen Meek, Tahira Mulji, Sung Yun Nam, Johnson Ng, Wing Yu Ng, Yasaban Nuhi, Colleen Fung, Dana Pico, Blair Popovich, Michael Raimondi, Janine Reguer, Eloise Rowland, Harpreet Kaur Sandhu, Mark Seung, Kevin Shaw, Erica Shears, Yi Yun Shi, Michelle Sindon, Carla Sloan, Mark Strange, Jennifer Sue Johan, Frank Sun, Zheng Sun, Mila Tang, Jocelyn Tompkinson, Colin Trunchik, Jordan Vanstone, Jennifer Wan, Arthur Wang, Lianwei Wang, Wei Wang, Chuyan Allen Wei, Rosanna Weyenberg, Adam Wild, Christina Williams, Edwin Wong, Eric Wong, Wenwen Olivia Wong, Karen Wong, Charlene Wood, Jalin Wu, Li Yang, Mickey Yip, Henry Yip, Thomas Yue, Jining Zhang, Michelle Zhou, Sebastian Zielinski.
Will the graduating class please rise? I congratulate each of you on the completion of your program, and I ask your friends and family to join me in applauding the graduating class of 2006. Now I invite you, the members of the graduating class, to reciprocate by applauding family, friends, faculty, and staff, all who have helped you achieve this goal. Thank you. Please be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, this completes the formal awarding of degrees. Some candidates recommended by the Senate are unable to be present, and their names have therefore not been read out. I now admit them to the appropriate designations as shown on the program. I have several thank yous to express. To all of you for joining us on such a beautiful fall day. To the many volunteer staff and faculty members coordinated by the registrar, and the ceremonies and events officers who work together to run a smooth Convocation day. And to the members of our four-time world champion Simon Fraser University Pipe Band for their special contribution to Convocation. They will perform after the ceremony in the square behind the platform. This brings to a close the formal part of this afternoon's Convocation. You are all invited to attend a reception to be held in the James Douglas Room behind the platform to your right following the ceremony. Would you please rise and remain standing at your places until the platform party has recessed.